Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Since the very beginning of the pandemic, professional sports has been a kind of laboratory, testing policies that we could use to deal with the virus in society writ large. Remember, professional sports teams were among the few organizations in the very beginning, back in the spring of 2020, that had access to testing, which revealed early outbreaks among players. And it all started on March 11th of last year.
And fans, due to unforeseen circumstances, the game tonight has been postponed. You are all safe. And take your time in leaving the arena tonight and do so in an orderly fashion. Thank you for coming out tonight. We are all safe.
Remember that day? That was also Tom Hanks Day, the day Tom Hanks tested positive. That was like the day where it was like, oh, everything's going to shut down. It was a game between the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it was postponed because a player on the Jazz, their star center Rudy Gobert, tested positive for COVID right before that game. And that kicked everything off. It very quickly led to the NBA just suspending its season. And then this kind of thing started happening all over sports, not just basketball. And so conducting professional sports in the midst of a pandemic with an airborne infectious virus that is transmitted through heavy breathing presented a unique challenge. But because of the sheer amount of money riding on these leagues, billions and billions of dollars, and because they also basically have endless resources, that actually led to a lot of innovation. The sports leagues had to figure out creative solutions to keep their sports going and to keep making that money and collecting their paychecks and their TV licensing deals. One of those was the NBA bubble, when 22 teams relocated to Disney World in Florida, where they lived and played inside a bubble, including family members had to test to come in and they couldn't go back and forth. They couldn't interact with anyone from the outside world for months. Major League Baseball played games without fans in completely empty stadiums. And there were rigorous testing protocols like in the NFL where players, coaches, and staff were tested daily. So all these sports leagues have been able to do a lot of things that we have struggled to do in broader society because, well, we all do not have the level of resources or funds riding on our success. But now we are watching the leagues grapple with the vaccination problem. And they are facing the same roadblocks as the rest of society. They cannot run their businesses safely unless they get everyone vaccinated. And they cannot get everyone vaccinated because some unknown number of people do not want to get vaccinated. Now, at one level, I kind of understand this. I mean, if I really will myself to try to put myself in the shoes of some of these athletes are, of course, very in touch with and connected to their bodies. They're very concerned about what they put in them. And so then I can see why they might be reticent about the vaccine. But I got to say, at the same time, these are people who are taking all kinds of drugs and medical interventions all the time, pain medication, some other kinds of treatments. Also, these athletes' entire livelihoods depend on their physical performance. And not getting a case of debilitating long COVID that could, for example, significantly reduce their lung capacity. This is not a thought experiment. We've seen a bunch of athletes struggling with the effects of COVID after they got it. Like Yoan Moncada, 26-year-old third baseman for the Chicago White Sox, who struggled to run the bases without getting winded after contracting COVID last summer. Or Jason Tatum, one of the brightest stars in the NBA, 23-year-old forward on the Boston Celtics, tested positive in January. He now uses an inhaler before games. Didn't have to do that before. 26-year-old Tommy Sweeney, a tight end on the Buffalo Bills, developed a heart condition linked to COVID that took him out of the game for months. This is a real, actual risk that athletes are running, not just to their health, but again, to their livelihood. And yet, there remain a lot of skeptics. Even with all the money in the world at stake and expert doctors at their disposal and access to all of the best information. I mean, literally, get this. Last month, the Washington football team brought in an expert, an immunologist who was literally part of the team that helped develop the Moderna vaccine, to just like one-on-one provide players with information about the vaccines, answer any questions they might have. And even that could not convince everyone.
What do you make of the way that the team is bringing in like vaccine experts and stuff to encourage people to get vaccinated? Like, what are you trying to make of all that?
I'm not a fan of it. I probably won't get vaccinated until we got more facts and all that type of stuff, but no, I'm not a fan of it at all.
I'm not a fan of it. That player, Montez Sweat, had the doctor who developed one of the life-saving vaccines at his disposal to answer questions, right? This is not something that happens to most people. Still, needed more facts. And he's not alone. It is a thing we are seeing across all professional sports.
I'm not anti or pro-vax. I'm pro-choice. Some people may think that I'm being selfish in making this a me thing. It is all about the young players who don't have a voice and are reaching out to me every day because they're being told if they don't get vaxxed, they'll be cut.
Are you vaccinated?
That's a personal decision.
Have you gotten the vaccine?
I don't necessarily think that's exactly important, Clarence. I think that's HIPAA.
No, it's not. It's not a HIPAA thing. It's not HIPAA at all. It has to do with healthcare providers sharing information. But secondly, we know basically everything about these athletes and their medical history. Again, I mean, I understand the desire for privacy, but like if they tear a groin, we get like a 2-paragraph readout about their groin, right? That's public knowledge. There's basically nothing personal about their medical records. So it's not the most convincing argument. And as for the rest, well, it's the same stuff you hear everywhere. That sounds like people you may know in your life, sort of squirrely. It's my choice. It's my business. I need more facts. Not actually making any real argument, just, generally skeptical and resistant. They don't like things being mandated and shoved down their throats. It's the same problem we have across the country. I mean, millions of people. Now, part of it is being driven by a right-wing political movement that has, from the beginning, basically, nihilistically opposed basically every attempt to try to fight the virus, whether that's, social distancing, mass vaccines, and to keep people healthy and alive. I don't quite understand why they've done that, but it's racked up quite a death toll. But part of it is also just the fact that, human psychology is complex. I got all kinds of irrational beliefs and blind spots. People have all sorts of superstitions or skepticism or beliefs about all sorts of things. It's just, how we are. We're that's who we are. It just happens that this is one of those beliefs we really need to overcome. And so the sports leagues are again at the forefront of figuring out how to deal with that. So last week, the NFL announced they are going to put their thumb on the scale, sending a memo stating the new policy that if a game cannot be rescheduled during the season due to a COVID-19 outbreak among unvaccinated players, the team with the outbreak will forfeit and be credited with a loss. The NFL is also reportedly allowing teams to make unvaccinated players wear brightly colored wristbands, a move the players' union is against. So the NFL is clearly trying to put pressure on their players to get vaccinated. The players know that. Some of them are not happy about it. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins wrote and then deleted this tweet saying, "Being in a position to hurt my team because I don't want to partake in the vaccine is making me question my future in the NFL." But some players, I think a lot, are just going to get vaccinated so they don't cost their team games. That's what Tennessee Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill did. And what Detroit Lions left tackle Taylor Decker did, a guy who staunchly opposed getting the vaccine earlier this spring. And guess what? We are starting to see the same thing happen in broader society. So several companies, including Google, Facebook, Morgan Stanley, have announced they will require employees to be vaccinated to return to the office. And today, the biggest employer in the country announced they would be implementing a similar policy. President Joe Biden said federal workers will be required to confirm they are vaccinated or submit to regular testing and other restrictions. He also went out of his way to highlight the NFL's policy.
I also commend the National Football League. It has announced that if there are outbreaks among unvaccinated players and personnel, then the team risks forfeiting games. I urge other sport leagues at every level to take every step they can. Every day, more businesses are implementing their own vaccine mandates. The Justice Department has made it clear that it is legal to require COVID-19 vaccines. We all want our lives to get back to normal. And fully vaccinated workplaces will make that happen more quickly and more successfully.
Now, President Biden is, I think, smartly, like the NFL, not forcing vaccinations, right? Like the NFL, the Biden policy for federal workers is putting a thumb on the scale. And hopefully by stepping up in this way, the federal government will give leeway for other organizations and businesses to do the same. But here's the thing, folks. We got to get this done. We are in the midst of an outbreak of the Delta variant. Of course, you know that. There are places in this country like Florida and Missouri now seeing hospitalizations at all-time highs. And keep in mind what we learned last year, because there's a really annoying tendency for all of us to forget, right? It's a seasonal virus and it mutates. We know those two things. Whatever we're seeing now is the run-up for the fall and the winter. So whatever it takes to vaccinate as many people as we can now, we got to do it.